All right, well, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar here. Thanks for joining us for part 2 of our deep dive into DriveWorks webinar series. My name is Scott Gavosdis. I am the Director of Sales for the Manufacturing Division at TPM, and I am joined by Joel Hanneman, our Director of Technical Services, who will be presenting. Real quick, you will see the Q&A tab on your GoToWebinar browser. You can enter questions there during the presentation. We will address all questions at the end, and this webinar is being recorded, so it can be shared out afterward. For those of you that may have missed it, in part 1 of the webinar series, we covered the power of design automation. We'll touch on that briefly on the front end here, but today we will be focusing on what is commonly referred to as CPQ, or Configure Price Quote. If you are searching for an effective way to increase your sales and meet your customer requirements a little bit faster, you're in the right place. And perhaps you're currently using a CPQ tool, but you feel there might be a better way.
So what is DriveWorks? If you've heard from us at all about DriveWorks in the past, you've probably recognized the term called 3 pillars. This is kind of our way of taking the totality of DriveWorks' capabilities, which are quite broad and deep, and trying to perhaps oversimplify what the totality of functionality is. And we simplify this by just simply categorizing 3 main areas of functionality. And it's really like a conceptual separation of functionality. The first one is, and by the way, these 3 pillars line up quite nicely to our webinar series. So the first one is all things design automation featuring SolidWorks as a CAD package. Okay, we will do a little recap of what this is, but we have an entire webinar dedicated to exploring that in depth. Today, we're talking about CPQ. That is the second pillar in of itself. More to come on that. And finally, a pillar that we call everything else. And it's titled everything else, not to be too casual about it, but it can be literally all the other stuff, covering all the nooks and crannies of how your business systems work, and fundamentally address the whole notion of configurability throughout the business. Okay, that will be a third part of the webinar series, scheduled for April 12th. And so look forward to telling you more about everything else then. Okay, well, starting off with just a quick recap of what is design automation, what does it matter? I want to go over this just to set a little context, because as we'll see, the CPQ solution for DriveWorks, an integral part of that, at least can be and maybe should be, the connection to design automation. So we do segregate them as functionalities, but it's important to take a step back and see holistically how all of this fits together. So what is design automation? Kind of the key points there that we go over is what is configurability? How do we define it? Where might your business reside on what we've kind of coined the configurability spectrum? That might be a mouthful, but we think it's insightful, right? And so if you kind of find yourself, if you self-describe yourself somewhere in this green box, then design automation can have a great impact on your business. Okay, if you're like a truly one-off situation, or you're just injection molding widgets by the millions, then can't say that configuration is a thing. But anything in between, there is some opportunity to automate the design. So that's the first concept. Second is what is involved in automating design. What is design intent? How do we go about capturing that in DriveWorks? How do we create logic to put that intent into action? And finally, how does the software actually do the automation? Right. So we walk through all those steps pretty clearly and paint a nice picture for what design automation is. And finally, we wrapped up with various demos, took a look under the hood of DriveWorks itself, and gave you just some quick insights into what a day in the life of putting design automation into place is really like. Okay, so hopefully upon watching that, you come away with some broad takeaways about DriveWorks as a software as a whole. Right, so if we kind of walk our way back from design automation and automating CAD specifically, and we look at DriveWorks and the fundamental things that it enables you to do, we can kind of summarize that with this list on the right. You can write rules, you can automate CAD, we can integrate with other systems, we can use 3D technology to represent the model without actually using SOLIDWORKS files. We can UI builder, that means we can build forms, custom interfaces. We can build and house a design process within a workflow. We can report against these things. And then of course there's the actual generated content of all this, ranging from SOLIDWORKS files, Excel files, Word, PDFs, you name it, XML, HTML, any kind of actual file type that would be an output of the design process is of course encapsulated in all this. So what does all that mean when we break it down? What are we walking away with total capability? Well, first and foremost, it is the ultimate in SOLIDWORKS automation. In short, if you can do it with a mouse by hand, DriveWorks can automate that mouse click, okay? Along the way, we see that everything that you can touch in DriveWorks is customizable. Every nook and cranny of the software has the ability to write a custom rule, introduce that special caveat, handle that extra complexity. Whatever it is, that's all quite doable in the application. And by the way, we're doing all this in what I would call a no-code setting. A popular industry term is like citizen developer, right? And it's part of this generation of software that is putting the power of what would traditionally be programming and the world of a programmer, and putting that really more in the hands of an engineer or maybe a business analyst or a data administrator, some other role in the business that just isn't a bona fide coder, okay? Oh, by the way, all of this is web ready. You can go from building out the application that suits you perfectly on a local machine to deploying that through a website and essentially giving access to anyone in the world with the right credentials to access the same system. So finally, what do we get? Something that we would like to think is an all-in-one solution, okay? So we're going to take these broad characteristics that we were focused on design automation, and now just simply apply them to this idea of CPQ. The good news is that it's all the same software, right? We're just kind of using the same software to look in a slightly different direction within the business and attack a different assortment of challenges. Okay, specifically the functionality that we're going to kind of call from and leverage, writing rules. We're integrating with other systems, like maybe a CRM system or ERP system. We're going to perhaps build some amount of custom forms that aren't included out of the box with the purchase. Introduce your own workflow that suits your needs. And of course, any type of document management. More to comment on all of this. Okay, so now let's focus on what is CPQ. It's one of those hundreds of business software acronyms. They're all over the place. They all have three letters for some reason, so CPQ complies, but it stands for configure, price, quote. So any CPQ system worth of salt enables some kind of just fundamental functionality, right? It enables a user to go in to whatever the system is, select a product, configure it as necessary, and hopefully do that and handle that no matter how complex the product or product line is. Once doing that, you just simply get a price, ideally real time, and ideally dynamically in direct response to the product as configured. Okay. Finally, the quote. The quote represents receiving and maintaining access in some sort of centralized format to all the documentation that you would associate with the quoting process. Drawings, an actual written quote, associated documentation, warranties, who knows, whatever the totality of documentation that is part of the quote lifecycle, all of that needs to be kind of brought into the fray. Okay, so if you were to do a search in Google for CPQ solutions, you'll find pages and pages and pages of worth, right? There are literally hundreds of solutions, all styling themselves as a CPQ solution. Do they fundamentally allow some amount of configuration? Probably. Do they get you a price? Most likely. Are you going to get a quote in your email inbox? Yeah. So that's all pretty common stuff. Even ERP solutions have a CPQ type module that handles that basic activity. But perhaps in your business, you've encountered situations where a business system, a record, just doesn't quite do the job, right? It might do something fundamentally, but it doesn't handle your needs exactly as you need them, give you the right information at the right time, so on and so forth. And really, that's where we feel that DriveWorks really stands out from the rest, okay? And so this is what we feel a proper CPQ solution should be doing for you. It should be automating all your processes, thereby speeding up the whole quoting lifecycle, right? And getting you from that quote to cash cycle and streamline that as much as possible. Meanwhile, to the extent that you have a highly configurable product or sophisticated product or a very technical product, you really ought to be guiding your users through the selling process. If they make choices and selections and terminations, they really ought to know what they're doing, right? What's the impact of that, choosing this option? What's the impact on my price for adding the additional module? Whatever it is, that should all be very intelligent and very guided, okay? And as a result, allow anyone to configure a complex system from any device anywhere in the world as you see fit. Of course, that's baking in lots of rules, lots of logic, which is kind of, if the devil's in the details, that's where things can go wrong. Like your rules just aren't comprehensive enough. They don't consider every possible scenario and iteration of product. They don't consider all those caveats. So if a proper CPQ solution ought to handle everything. Okay. Furthermore, you shouldn't have to go out and hire a team of programmers or set up with a firm in India who has their own team of programmers just to get this solution up and running, right? It should be easy to set up, maintain, and run by yourself in that citizen developer type environment. So what sets DriveWorks CPQ apart? Why is it unique? Why do we consider it the leading solution in this space? We'll recap some of what it means to have a product configurator versus what it means to have a total CPQ framework. And I'm going to be very careful to point out in our demo what I would just simply call out of the box, meaning you buy the DriveWorks software and you institute the use of CPQ, and of all the things that we're going to look at, what is like there and ready to use, thus saving all sorts of time in the development process. So we can blend this out of the box advantage, let's say call it a head start, yet everything about it is still customizable in true DriveWorks fashion. All the while, this customized out of the box usage of DriveWorks is still fully integrated with everything else that we will come to know as part of DriveWorks, and all those things are fully customizable as well. So it's this very novel intersection of DriveWorks giving you for free with the purchase of the software. These are the things that are most commonly associated with the need to configure product, deliver a price, handle quote documentation. We're going to just give it to you, save you the time. Here, you take it and customize it to your exact needs. Again, easy maintenance, and that's because we're not talking about code or programming. It's all very drag and drop, WYSIWYG type stuff. Oh, by the way, all of this is fully supported by DriveWorks as a software company. So at no point are you going off the rails in terms of going down a truly customized solution in terms of coding, like where you start to have to maintain your own project files and such, kind of in a proper coding environment. So, okay, so enough listening to me. Let's put our eyes on what I'm talking about. So before I go to these websites here, I'm going to also paste links to the same site so that you have record of those and can go there on your own. Don't take my word for it. Try it, give it a test drive yourself, and see what you think. Okay. So a few things I want to point out first. We're going to look at the sort of the general DriveWorks demo site, which has quite a bit to it. And then we're going to explore a day in the life of a fictitious company called Vista. They're a window and door manufacturer. Okay. Vista has, they began their DriveWorks journey by building product configurators, right? They don't want to have their engineers designing doors and windows all day long when there are rules in place to guide that design process, and we can just have DriveWorks automate all that. Okay, but they want to extend that automation out to their sales team and their marketing team. Oh, and then they want to extend that functionality out to their dealer network. Actually, they'd like to market all of this out to the general public. They'd like anyone in the world to come in to their website and have a go. Let's design a product and get a quote. Why not? Okay, so what we're going to see in Vista is a pretty typical manufacturer, distributor, end user environment where we have three different perspectives, all working through the same system at the same time, centralized data on the web, ready to go. It's gonna be great. Okay, so let's go. First of all, here is the DriveWorks Live site that I just pasted the link to in the chat. Okay, this is a live working site that is hosted by DriveWorks in the UK. So they have their own servers, right? That they have installed DriveWorks, much like any manufacturer would also as part of their implementation. So what you see here is fairly representative of what any given DriveWorks user could end up with. Okay, so let's look at just a quick review of what I would just consider a standalone product configurator, right? So we're on a website, we are entering this space that is designed simply just to configure a certain product or certain product family. Going across the pond here to access it, so a little time to load. We'll try another one. Try folding door. Okay, so here we go. A simple but nicely designed product configurator. Of course, very heavy on what we call 3D preview, right? The product that is the door is represented here on my screen in 3D. So not only is it just there, it's in context of a building, which is kind of handy, and it will be totally reactive, dynamically reactive to my inputs. Okay, so I'm not gonna talk too much about what we're seeing, how it works. This is actually part of the content of the design automation demo presentation that we already referenced. But I just want to reposition the idea of a product configurator. It's a form. As a user, I'm guided through the specification process. There's notes, there's summaries. I'll be getting a real-time price down here in the bottom right. Let's see, I can make this thing fully featured, right? I can fully design this product, and I don't need to know a whole lot about doors to do it. So in principle, just a fine product configurator. Okay, but that's all it is. It's just a standalone configurator. It might do that job well, but it doesn't live in the context of a more comprehensive system, right? It's just a standalone tool. Okay, and that's where we start to cross into the CPQ space. Let's have a home for this kind of a process to live and ingratiate it with the rest of the business. Okay, so we have further down the site, the DriveWorks Live site, there is a nicely produced video introducing CPQ for manufacturers. I recommend just browsing that. We're not going to watch it here today. And furthermore, there are links to the same demo that we're going to look at here together. So pretty handy to reference on your own and use to imagine what this kind of technology, how it might benefit your business. Okay, so we're going to enter the Vista demo. Actually, I'll just start from the beginning here. Let's see. Okay, so here we are. it's a fictitious company, but I think we could imagine how this might look for ourselves. So here we are on a website, any old company's website, Vista.com. The majority of what we're seeing here is just normal website stuff. Whether you're on WordPress or GoDaddy website, or you got a custom developed site, it's just a website, right? But within it, if we so chose, and if we wanted to have publicly available to the World Wide Web, DriveWorks embedded in that site. So you can see as I mouse over here, there's this kind of dotted blue line. That's just sort of helping us understand what segregates DriveWorks stuff from the website stuff. Okay, so here we are. Vista makes windows and doors. We can configure away just like we were configuring before in that quote unquote standalone configurator. Okay, so again, I'm guided in the selling process. What's a head? Oh, I click on head and I get, it appears for me. Well, that's pretty handy. Now I know, yes, I want one of those, please. I don't know what a muntin is. Muntin, I don't know how to pronounce it. What is it? Oh yeah, those things. I remember seeing those in Windows. I'm glad they are showing me this so I know what to specify. Next. Now, I think red might do. Yeah, I prefer that. So again, I'm not going to belabor the product configuration process, really just trying to point out that that is housed within a website, right? Probably an already existing website. Meanwhile, we're getting updated pricing. If I feel like I need 3 of these things, I can do that. Hey, I'm just someone kicking the tires out there looking for a price on Windows. Let's just see what they come back with. Okay, here's I got an early read on the price. Hey, if I want more information, I'll just fill out some contact information. And maybe someone will get in touch with me. Okay, again, this all feels like pretty typical website stuff. If you go onto any company's website, these are things that you would expect to be able to do. And here we are doing it. It's just we're using DriveWorks to facilitate that. So I'm going to request a quote. I'll show you in a few minutes that I will get an email with just acknowledging my quote request and probably having some content for me. So that's the end of the experience for this like public user, just some random person out there looking to kick the tires. Okay, well, what if I'm a dealer and that person, the person that just made that request is in my territory? Maybe I want to follow up with them. How do I even know that they exist and they're interested? Okay, well, now I'm the dealer at this point. I'm going to log in to my portal to the same system using DriveWorks. Same website here. So from the top of the browser to this gray bar, that's just normal website stuff. The green bar at the bottom is the website, and everything in between is DriveWorks CPQ. So let's see. The way that DriveWorks, I'm imagining, would have been set up for Vista is as soon as I requested the information as a user, not only did the user get an email, but so did that distributor. So it's not like they just happened to know that someone was browsing. There was like some intelligence and some smart processing happening in the background. The quotes and orders. Let's see. Well, so here we are. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So I'm logged into my CPQ system. So we have real easy and clean navigation. All of these buttons, or we call them tiles, available out of the box. This doesn't have to be programmed, but that they happen to say accounts or contacts, or there's this cute little image and there's 6 things to click on versus 10 versus 2, that part is all customizable, okay? So they happen to have links in the portal to, handy references. That's a link to the DriveWorks site. Here's a link to the Vista company site. If you can have a link to your company intranet, you can have a link to the manufacturer's catalog. Whatever you see handy, you just include it. Okay, so anyways, back to the talk track. Okay, I got an email, someone's interested in my product. Let's go check out my quotes and orders area. We happen to have a little tile set up just for this purpose. View all my online quote requests. Let's see, here we go. As of now, that order is just kind of identified as a guest, but here it is. What did they order? Who are they? Picked up my user data. That's nice. So it's now gonna because I happen to already exist in their CRM system, it identified that and made that connection for us. What did Joel order, or what's he interested in? Oh, let's check that out. Here we are, back to the same configurator that other user used. We can study it. We can see what he was up to, what the intentions are. Okay, well, maybe I want to call Joel and review the order with him, introduce myself, my company, and get to chatting and realize, oh, actually, you know what, he might want to do, he actually wants 10 windows. So I'm going to adjust the quantity right here. And because he's doing 10, we sweet talked him a bit. We're going to add a 15% discount. And if I felt compelled to, I could go ahead and overwrite the system price right here and give him a price of $1,000 each. Thank him for his interest. Oh, by the way, I found out a bit more about the job. We're going to change the width a bit. Okay, update the item. And just like that, in a centralized way, we have handled some request for a change, right? And if I felt inclined to do so, I could add a note. Okay, spoke with Joel, added items, and offered discount. Cool, well, that's kind of handy. Now, anyone that comes in here can reference that note. Oh, actually, I just remembered when I was talking to him, he's like, he's got some door projects going on as well. And, you know, he figured if he's going to place an order from us, you know, we're going to get him some plates, right? Some kick plates for the door. Turns out he needs 10 of those, right? And we'll also give him a discount on that. That's nice. A little upsell. I'm really glad I understood that Joel wanted some product, because that gave me the opportunity to chat with him and thereby increase our business a bit and make him just a little happier. Okay, great. We now believe between all parties that this request is now like kind of entering the realm of a quote. So that invokes the notion of workflow, okay? So what we see here is just a custom little workflow that is set up just for Vista. Might be oversimplified for your business, don't know. But everything that you see here could be made to suit your needs. So we are sitting here currently in a state that we would just call completed web request. Let's go ahead and formalize that and turn it into a quote. Great, there we go. Now, this thing is no longer sitting in this list of web requests. It's now a bona fide quote and available to us here in this quote offering, right? So we can come back here. If we care to readjust the quote, we can still do so. Okay, let's check out this documents tab. What do we have here? Ooh, that looks like a handy version of the quote. By the way, this is the same quote that was already emailed to the customer, but you know, if you ever lose attachments in an email, or you have trouble with revision control, or you otherwise just have trouble like keeping track of all the stuff associated with the sales process, not a thing anymore. Let's use CPQ to house all that information in one place. You might say, actually, we're not going to email documents anymore. There's a lot of risk in that. Who needs to have an email attachment when they can come to the single source of truth and see everything they need to know about that quote, featuring a highly configurable product? Okay, so great. The quote has been accepted, and we want to turn that into an order. If there was something wrong with the quote, we could kind of back up the step and requote it. You know, that's how Vista wants to set up their business. So let's move on to the order step. Okay, so now this job is no longer situated as an order, or a quote is now an order. So as this CPQ is set up, we got to click somewhere else to get there, and we can still come back and access all the same. Okay, but in doing so, we automatically kicked off an order confirmation. What do you know? A new document associated with this sales cycle. Let's keep track of that and put it all in one place. All the information's there, pre-populated, ready to go, ready for all parties to access. And as we propagate this job through the system, we're going to move into engineering. I imagine at this point, this is perhaps where we actually start generating some CAD content. Hello, let's talk about design automation. Ready to go, fully integrated, happening right now as we speak on the DriveWorks server. it's talking, DriveWorks is talking to SolidWorks, automating part files, assembly files, drawings, turning those drawings into PDFs, creating images, e-drawings files, whatever it is. All that collective content is happening right now, okay? I bet when it's done, I'll get an email saying, hey, come back and check out your drawing is now available. Okay, I don't actually know how long it'll take, but let's see if there's any new content available right now. Wrong order. Oh, is that my order? Well, in any case, here is maybe what you might consider a job packet or just a technical package associated with that project or that job. So we have some summary information. We've got images of the CAD as produced. And by the way, this is available in a PDF. I could go ahead and download it right now. Or if I had other information that I wanted to upload to associate with the job, because hey, let's just keep all this stuff together, I can do so as well. So this document is just reflective of all the SolidWorks content that was generated real time in response to this custom order for a highly configurable product. And we don't need to, again, this is all CAD automation content that we could point back to part 1 of the webinar series to learn more about. But needless to say, it's all here, it's accessible, it's centralized, and pretty handy. Okay, so now let's move this over to engineering. And maybe we'll, oh, I see. Then we can move it over to manufacturing. And let's say we're pretty quick at manufacturing and we're ready to go ahead and ship it. Done. Product is shipped, email went out, customer knows their custom windows are in transit. So what might be so interesting about that? Well, maybe a shipping label would be handy. Scan this code, track your shipment. I don't know, things of that sort. We could have a shipping ticket, a promised delivery date, whatever you could imagine with shipping, with manufacturing, with engineering. Every step along the way, we can encapsulate that within a total framework that is DriveWorks CPQ. So that's a quick dive into the notion of workflow and how an imaginary business might use DriveWorks to just have a place to house a full cycle business process. We're not just doing that. DriveWorks can do a whole lot more. CPQ, maybe you've got a list of contacts linked to your Cut CRM database. Let's pull all that data in because that sounds pretty relevant. So not only do you have accounts, but you have contacts. And not only do you have contacts, but you might have various shipping addresses. So short story is you've got data of all various types in various places across the business, disconnected. Why not bring it all together in one place where it's actually useful, right? And you can make it actionable and progress business with it. Okay, so that's a day in the life of kind of various users of a CPQ system. Okay, but what about the perspective of like what does the actual back end of all this look like? Like this is fine, this is a nicely polished site, but what did it take to get here? How does it work? Show me a little peek under the hood. Great, let's take a little look at DriveWorks. Okay, if you were with us for part 1 of the webinar series, we did introduce DriveWorks Administrator. This is one of the modules of the DriveWorks Pro offering, and this is where everything about your implementation is born and grown and matured and brought into a production ready state. Okay, so if you have a window configurator, this is where it would have been built. If you have connections to databases, this is where those are formed. If you're sending a web request off to some faraway website to get information, that's how we're going to build the logic to retrieve that. If you have a form a custom form that you want to build. That'll be in here too. So administrators, where all development comes to fruition. So on my machine, I am not Vista window company. That's a DriveWorks artifact. But I do have a kind of a very basic version. This is basically what I'm going to show you is the out of the box stuff. So literally within minutes, I have I'd say maybe 70-75% of what you saw in Vista company ready to go. I've got contacts. Okay, all my contacts are coming from a database. If you know something about databases, I've just tapped into just a dummy CRM database that happened to have quotes and accounts in it. We can tap into that and populate all my information. Okay, so that's ready to go within minutes. That you can bring in a raw data source of contacts and edit those contacts, make changes, save it. You just updated the database. That capability was built out within minutes. Okay, that I styled this thing with our TPM Blue. That took about 30 seconds. So hopefully you're able to see that DriveWorks provides this wonderful foundation of kind of handling the logistics and the infrastructure that is associated with the sales process, but giving you the ability to tune it as you need. Okay, and everything about this is customizable from within the format. So when I changed a color or an image or handled any sort of configuration of the CPQ for my needs, that's all drag and drop WYSIWYG stuff. Again, no programming. What does this thing look like on a desktop? How's it gonna render on a phone? I wanna change the fonts, the colors, the language. Do I wanna sync up my language to a Google Translator? I mean, it goes on, right? Again, no code anywhere to be seen. That there's a collection of dashboards. I started off with just these basics, right? Maybe there's a whole section that I want to dedicate my CPQ solution to various KPIs. Let's click on that. How many orders have shipped today? How many new orders did I get? How many orders last month? If this is useful information, let's put that out there, right there for everyone to see. You prefer to see information charts? We can link to bespoke charts that DriveWorks can render for you. You just point it to the data and it'll go. You know, that's a basic pie chart. We have some graphs. I don't have a whole lot of data here, so there's not much to see, but you could imagine, hey, everyone loves a good dashboard. Information is key to running a business. Let's put that all in the same place. Imagine the power of that when all of this is connected to that core data that your business runs on. So if you're a manufacturer of configurable products, I bet you have a heavy use of CAD, of SolidWorks, right? So imagine all that rich and good information that exists in SolidWorks: quantities, part numbers, weights, features, custom properties, all this stuff that's useful, but it's stuck in SolidWorks. Well, not anymore. DriveWorks integrates perfectly with SolidWorks, thus that all that data is available. So long as you can articulate, well, this is how I'd like to visualize that data, then great. We're minutes away from building a little dashboard tile that is going to present you that information right here, right now, amongst everything else that is the totality of the CPQ solution. Okay, administering a catalog, right? Do you have a mix of custom items and off-the-shelf items? If you remember the Vista demo, that one job had the configurable window, but it also had a kick plate. That was just a run-of-the-mill catalog item blended into one seamless experience. That was instituted by just using the simple item interface. Okay, very easy WYSIWYG stuff. What is the item? What's the code? Do I want a description? Do I want to associate any particular files to it? Here's an image file that I pulled off my machine. You know, this is pretty much anyone can click these buttons and make this happen. This isn't even, when I talk about citizen developer, like the programmer doesn't have to do this, even now an engineer can do it. We're saying like even an office manager or a secretary or a marketing person can gain access to the system and do their part, right? So this is all out of the box, featuring custom information and customization of the box that you're getting. You can have different price lists, okay? You can build your catalog out by types. Maybe you want to segregate your product lines by sub-product lines, or you have different catalogs. You know, however you believe you need to go to market to present your products to your distributors, to the public, that's all handled here with a couple clicks of a button in the CPQ solution. Okay, so that's about it. That's a very quick introduction to what CPQ is all about. Again, the key differentiator here is that, you know, many systems out there can manage a contact or manage an item. ERP, great at managing items. CRM, you can track all sorts of good stuff about leads or customers or customer activity. You might find that those are the ideal places to leave that functionality. They were built to handle that kind of information. They're built to service it and do wonderful things with it, but they're different systems. Maybe they don't talk to each other very well. Maybe you can't synthesize all that information in just the right way that you need to gain the insights needed to improve your business. That's what CPQ is all about, above and beyond the actual SolidWorks automation that invokes inclusion of all that CAD data, all the production data that can come with it, and puts it into one comprehensive, happy system that you can have up and running in a day and then customized from there. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave a little extra time here for some Q&A, and we can refer back to these websites or to DriveWorks to answer questions as they come up.
Just want to thank everyone for joining us today, but that concludes the presentation and the Q&A. We're going to be finishing up this DriveWorks webinar series on April 12th. And just a quick recap, in part one, we covered design automation. Today in part two, we went through CPQ, or configure price quote. And in part three, we're going to focus on what we call everything else, primarily data integrations across your organization.